Good evening, everyone. It is Tuesday. It is time to get down and get funky with your nasty self and BSR. That's
Hello,
right.
how are
It is time. I'm great. I'm glad to be back.
you? Yes,
A little bit slower.
it's great to have you back. I do miss the pirate eye. That was kind of cool.
Yeah, that was. I toyed around with bringing. Actually, Jimmy and I talked earlier today. I was going to come in with the big dark sunglasses and a white cane, and
Yeah.
I was going to start the show like this. Good evening, everyone. You know,
Over here, okay.
and then it would have been, but Jimmy's like, someone's going to be offended. And it's like, more reason to do it.
Right.
But, okay.
Yeah,
Jimmy's
poor
just,
Jimmy.
yeah,
He
Jimmy's
tries so hard to make everyone happy.
He's just the little voice of reason in the background. And
He is.
there he is. Yeah, we're talking about him. And now he gets here just after we get all the dirt dished with Jimmy.
Well, there's like a 30-second delay, so he'll be hearing it about now.
Oh, yeah, that's right. Yeah, with the delay, it works the other way. So he's going to hear it. So.
Yeah.
So yeah, we'll talk more about what's gone on and such in the second show. We're going to jump into tonight's show, because for tonight's show and the first one, Brian, what I wanted to talk about a little bit, there's a few aspects of this, but I was talking to a younger DJ about mid last week, and he was talking about the idea that he basically wanted to do a certain type of, he wanted to be an EDM DJ. He's like, I love EDM music. I want to be that type of DJ. And I was thinking about that, how many DJs out there can go and be specific. Now, today what was kind of cool is I don't know if you got to check out the live stream, but Carl Cox was doing the last show at Ibiza. He's been there forever, and he did his last show, and font of the logo, I think it's Utopia Bowl. So Carl's doing his last show, and they were streaming it. And boy, whoever streamed that just kicked butt with that stream. I mean, the video was clear, and the audio, they came right off the board, so that was great. And multiple cameras. It was really cool. But it was interesting as you're watching, is you have people who are like, oh, this is great, man, this is great. I watched for about 45 minutes, didn't recognize any songs for one thing. And secondly is the number of people who were like, okay, this is boring. And it went up to 27,000 viewers, and it went down to 24,000, then it went to 25, and it went down to 23,000, which...
It's a pretty good audience.
Yeah, it's...
But he's Carl Cox.
Yeah, I mean, he's
got that audience.
He's a legend. There's no question about it. Very, very talented man. Don't get me wrong with that. And there's many people who are making money that way, but in this world that we live in, can a person be that type of DJ? I mean, is that something to strive for? I'm struggling with that. As a young man was looking for advice. I don't know.
I'm not a dream crusher, so I'm not going to do that, because I think whatever you want to do, you should do it. If this is something that you really, really want, if you think it's going to come easy for you, it's not. It's something that it's going to take a lot of hard work, especially now that it's so popular. I mean, EDM, they're saying, is on the decline. They're saying that this is something that has peaked, and it's going to go this way. Mm-hmm. So that's something to keep in mind. On the other hand, you can also argue the fact that, well, it's going to go back underground, and that's where people are going to start shining. I think that's probably true as well. But I mean, if this is really what you want to do, you got to understand, you got to be willing to really sacrifice.
Yep.
You've got to be willing to be very persistent. You can't give it a go for 6 months, a year, or even 2 years, and then say to yourself, this isn't going anywhere. It's just not working out. I'm not going to do this anymore. If you really, really want it, you really have to work very hard, and you can't be okay. You got to be great.
Yeah.
If you want to really be successful with this, even on a local level, you've got to be very good even to get into a club doing this stuff.
Yeah.
But I mean, I'll start with that this is going to be perspective number one, because again, I'm not a dream crusher. If this is really what someone wants to do, by all means, they should be doing it. On the other hand, there are a lot of times where we start out to do one thing in life, and we have a very specific idea of what we want to do, and we end up somewhere completely different. But that different place isn't always a bad place. Mm-hmm. It can be a cool place. but you've got to be willing to be open-minded about things and let life take you where it does, if you will.
See, I was kind of looking at it, and that would build off what you were just saying. I referred to it more as like acting, that if a person wants to be a very famous movie star, you're probably not going to be able to do it in central Minnesota, that you're going to have to work your craft, hone your skills, develop, take training from somewhere, and you're going to have to go to a spot in which actors would go and find work.
Yeah, right,
and I think that's very much the same case, is that you're going to have to build your toolkit, build your skill level up. You're going to have to go places where you can actually perform in this type of manner, with the idea that you're one of maybe 5,000 DJs in the city who could do this and get your break somewhere.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Now, this is true. I mean, the actor thing is a really good analogy. Gene Wilder just passed. He was from Milwaukee, and he did some local acting here, but then he went to New York because that's what you did back then. And the thing with Gene Wilder is, I mean, that guy, you think about him as an actor, that guy didn't really pop until the late 60s, early 70s. Primarily early 70s with Mel Brooks stuff.
Yeah.
Like Blazing Saddles. And the guy was nearly 40 years old when that popped, but he'd been working on this craft since he was about 13.
Jeez.
So it works that way sometimes. You can't expect these things to happen overnight. I'll give you a personal story of mine. I mean, I've been DJing since I was 13 years old. I've talked about this before. And I went on to clubs. I went on to mobiles. I always wanted to kind of do the rock star thing, but this was my compromise to that, because people wanted me to DJ. They asked me to do it. They would call me and say, "Can you play at my club or my bar or for my wedding or whatever?" It wasn't anything I ever looked for. So it's like, okay, I guess this is what I am. This is what I'm going to do. I'm not going to worry about the rock star thing. And then 10 years ago, I started a YouTube account, because not just to watch Daft Punk videos is why I started the YouTube account. It was the reason, because at the time you had to have a login to watch certain things. I don't know if you got to do that anymore, but there was a time where you had to have a login to do this. And then I caught this dude in Wales doing some turntable videos. He had just started. I'm like, well, how the hell do you do this? I wonder if my little, $100 Samsung camera will take video. Well, it does. I'm going to give this guy something to watch, so I'm going to do something. And he got excited, and then a few other people got excited and started making videos. And here I'm thinking, all right, well, this is a thing that DJs are going to do now. We're just going to share what we know and how we do things, and we're going to be able to watch each other. If there's a DJ in northern Minnesota, for example, who doesn't really have anybody to talk to after his gig, he's going to be able to come on and log into this YouTube DJ community and see somebody on the other side of the world who just went through what he went through, and he's not going to feel alone anymore. It's going to be neat. Really, really neat. But ultimately that didn't happen. Everybody just kind of watched me and Jonathan. And then it was like, okay, well, let's just do cool videos for these people. And then more and more and more and more people started watching. And then, these companies started wanting product placement. And then I'm traveling around the world and people want to get pictures taken with me. I didn't plan any of this stuff. I just did something. And something happened. And I think that that's true with anything that a DJ does, or anything you do in life. I think it was George Harrison who said, or maybe it was John Lennon, one of the Beatles, said something about life is what happens when you're making other plans. And this is so true. So true. Hear the creaking noise? It's my daughter. She's home. 116-year-old house. You'll hear those kind of things. We've been walking around. But no, that's kind of how I see it. To want to do something specific, again, I don't think there's anything wrong with that. If you really want to go for it and do it. However, if you keep an open mind and you just kind of let things happen, sometimes organically amazing things happen.
Brian, let's take a little break here, and then we'll come back and let's talk about now going back in history and kind of look back. Was it possible for guys to specialize back when we first started? Let's talk a little bit about that when we come back after our sponsors for our shows here this fall. We got DJ Event Planner and Electro Voice.
DJ Event Planner will change the way you manage and run your business. Streamline all of your procedures and software into one easy-to-manage system. DJ Event Planner, the ultimate online planning tool.
All right, we are back. Thank you guys for watching tonight. Matt just joined us. Reggie's been here. Hubcap Dude, Daniel. A lot of folks in here tonight.
We know Robin's in here.
Robin's in there. Yes.
We know Jimmy's in here.
Yep, Jimmy's been in here talking about fonts. The important things. Thank you guys for being with us tonight. If you get a chance to, please go down and click the thumbs up on the video. That definitely helps us out in the YouTube world. And then, of course, after the shows, if you get a chance to pop back and give us a little bit of a little note after the shows are over, because what they put at the bottom afterwards is more important than what we do on the side during that. It's just the way YouTube works. Okay, Brian, before the break, I wanted to kind of go back. We were talking, we started the show talking about a DJ who wanted to basically specialize in one format, EDM in this particular case. But if a DJ had, they want to do a specific show. And I've had friends, I've got a gentleman, a friend of mine who was, he did a rock house, was his radio program. And it was just rock and roll. And he wanted to be just a rock and roll DJ. And he did the wedding thing, and he was very successful with that. But he hated himself for it. So it was Wolf's Rock House. This is the show. You're going to hear classic rock all night long at your wedding if that's what you want to hire. I was thinking about that, though. Was there much of that when we first started? I don't remember. I thought we bent over backwards, especially in the mobile world, to try to do a little bit of everything for everyone and try to be everything for everyone. I
think that was always the wedding DJ way or the mobile DJ way. The clubs were different because you could, around here anyway.
Yeah, for sure they were.
The alternative thing, and you could do the house thing, and you could do the top 40 thing, and you could do the hip hop thing, and you could do the big beat thing. There were a few different things that you could do, and there were audiences for this. But the thing that I think that we kind of forget about, and it's hard to wrap our heads around, it's hard for a lot of the newcomers to wrap their heads around, is back then, not just anyone could do this. You had to have a music library. You had to have the skills. You had to have the equipment. And this stuff was not available retail like it is today.
Yeah.
At the store that you could just go to and buy this stuff. You had to find it, like really seek it out. And sometimes it was a warehouse in the city, in the seedy part of town. They had the stuff that you needed, and you had to ask around where to go to get the stuff, let alone the collection of music and the skills to do this. Now it's like all the information is just available to you online. You can watch videos, you can get books on this, you can have people, help you. There are classes you can take on this stuff. It's different now. But back then, there were a few different things that you could do. Mm-hmm. And get away with it. The audience was there for all these things, in my neighborhood anyway. There was an audience for this. Now I think the hard part is really finding the audience.
That's a great point. I hadn't even thought about that, but yes, when you mentioned that, I flashed back to early. There were some nights when I would go play. I could do almost a straight night. In the 90s, mid 90s, when the country was hot, there were nights that it was almost all country.
Mm-hmm. Sure.
And now you're all over the board, even at the bar. Even at the country bar,
they want to hear hip hop sometimes. It's really bizarre.
Yeah. Interesting. Good observation.
It's the audience that's the hard thing to find. Now, we've got kind of a double-edged sword here. You have the internet, you have this, I guess, tool that could act as a venue for you to get your skills out there. You have social media to hype what you're doing. The problem is 500,000 other people are doing the same thing.
Yeah.
So it's hard. It's really hard. But don't underestimate just doing something, just trying something and see where it takes you. Maybe it's not initially where you thought it was going to take you, but it did take you somewhere that you never dreamed it would. And you do something that just changes the world. And that sounds so cheesy, but we were talking earlier today. I was talking about this bar that opened up in New York City in the early 70s. And the guy wanted to open a country bar in New York because he thought this was going to be the next big thing, country music. But he was way too cheap to pay for ASCAP, BMI, royalty fees. So he insisted on any artists that come in and play at his establishment play original music only, so he could avoid paying those fees. Well, the bar was CBGB's. Country Bluegrass Blues is what CBGB stand for. That was the birthplace of punk rock. Now, a lot of the bands that came through there, the college bands, the neighborhood bands, went out to do huge things. Talking Heads, the Ramones, Police, Blondie, the list goes on and on and on and on. There are tons of acts that started out at places like CBGB's. The sound guy, who was getting paid like $7 a night, went on to mix Bruce Springsteen. Amazing things happened. A whole subculture was born out of this little shitty bar the size of my studio. That's not what he planned, though. That's not what he wanted. Initially, he wanted a country bar. And he was quoted as saying later on, country was the next big thing. However, that was happening in Nashville, not in New York. This is what happened here. There's a movie called CBGB, and the sound guy, just little dumb things, stories that they're telling. The sound guy, the guy who owned the bar had a dog. The dog had fleas really bad. The sound guy wanted to quit because the fleas kept biting him. They were terrible. Oh, yeah. This dog crapped in the bar and everything else. The place was disgusting. So one of the bartenders suggested that he buy some boots. So he goes to Army Surplus and he buys combat boots. And he laces them up and tucks his pants into them so the fleas don't get to him. This started a trend. How many punkers do you know who wear combat boots?
Boots, like that? Yeah, yep.
This is what happened. These are the kind of things that can influence the world in really weird and wonderful ways that you'd never dreamed. But again, he started out wanting to do something completely different. And he ended up being the father of punk. This guy who started this bar. And I think that's pretty cool.
Yeah, that is.
You never know where life's going to take you.
I think that's a really good point. The idea that to be ready to be able to move left and right, to follow that trail wherever it may be. And I think that persistency that a person's got to have, because there's so many times where a person will get, things will get a little tough, or it's not exactly my dream. Yeah. And then you stop, or you give up, or and there's so many examples throughout history and business and different aspects of life where just showing up and doing the job or just continuing moving forward, even if it's just a little bit at a time, and all of a sudden you've arrived somewhere.
Yeah.
May not be exactly where you wanted, but you've arrived somewhere.
Right. Now I hate to sound like an old man, but we
are. Back when we were young, somebody asked about how long we've been DJing. I started in 1985 was my first.
Yeah. 84.
So we're young guys.
We're young. The self-esteem movement didn't really kick into gear until after my youth, where if I did something that was bad or I wasn't very good at something, my parents told me, or my mother told me, you gotta suck at that. You ought to try something else.
You should go over there.
Where I think nowadays, if you told your kid they sucked at anything, you'd be a terrible parent.
Yeah.
Oh, I can't believe you told your kid they weren't that good at. No, you're not a loser. You're the last winner. This didn't happen when we were young. It happens now. So I wonder if sometimes the younger DJs have this overinflated ego because of that, and they think that they're doing amazing things when in fact it's very mediocre. They haven't really gotten any true constructive criticism from anybody about what they're doing or where they want to go. My daughter, I want to go to college to be a photographer. I'm like, nope, sorry. And that might be considered terrible parenting for some people. But I'm like, kid, look, everybody's got a camera in their phone. I think this is kind of over. If you want to be a photographer, go be a photographer. But if you're going to pay for school, maybe you got to pay for something else.
Yeah.
And I may not be the traditional parent. Most parents these days will say, go be a photographer. You're amazing. I'm not that guy. I'm a reality-based guy. And I've been around and I've seen things. And I'm not all about, you can be anything. You can, but I think that you need to have some reality-based thinking as well.
Exactly.
So, and I don't know how relevant this is what we're talking about, but
no, I think it is. It is. I think it's all, we're talking about that filter to be able to go and look at things and to be able to have a little common sense and say, is this, yes, I love to take pictures, but is there a future in it? And there could be, it's for someone who's got the right eye and such.
Right.
But you've got to be able to, you've got to be up here in that top echelon to be able to make a living and make a good living doing that and doing what you love. And you can get there, but are you willing to put the work in to get there?
What's interesting about what I'm talking about is I think there was a lot of negative input or a lot of negative. We weren't told we can do anything we want to do. We weren't told we were great at everything. Now I think younger people are told this and they believe it after a while. And then once they get into the world, like, oh, wait a minute, how come the boss doesn't love me like mom did?
Yeah.
She's not, the boss is telling me that I'm fired, but I don't understand because I'm amazing. So you've got that on one side of the spectrum, but then you do have to be an optimist. And you have to be able to, I guess, maybe roll with the punches as a maybe that's, I don't know what I want to say. Anyway, at any rate, what I'm trying to say is that if things don't go quite the way you want them to, maybe it's time to embrace the way they went instead of looking at it as a failure. No, it's not a failure. It's a new direction. You have to be optimistic. You can't be jaded about the way things are going for you in your career, whatever you do, be it DJing or anything else. And think about people who go to college. I mean, I'm going to go to college to be a lawyer. And then by the time they're done, they've actually got a degree in business. And then after being in the workforce for a few years, turns out that they're in the marketing. You don't know where you're going to go in life.
Not in this day and age. I mean, any number of us, we could go in this chat room and some have got a little college, some have got a degree, and very few of us are doing what we went to school for.
I dropped out of high school.
Yeah. And we were all over the board, and it's just a crazy world.
So in a nutshell, to wrap this whole thing, my concept, if this is what you want to do it. Be willing to make those sacrifices financially, emotionally, and everything else. If you want to do something bad enough and you really feel like you have something to bring to the table that's different than what everyone else is doing, and you want to really start a revolution and do something new and fresh and hot in a genre of music as a DJ, do it. Don't let anybody stop you. But don't freak out if this doesn't happen for you immediately, because it's going to take some time for it to happen.
Yep.
And the other side of it is maybe go out there and just do something. Do something. Find an audience and play to them and embrace it. And embrace where this journey takes you. Don't get upset if it's not exactly where you wanted to go. If it's going somewhere and people dig what you do, this is pretty cool. And you never know where life's going to take you.
Yeah, isn't that the case? Isn't that the case? Good way to end it. Gang, we're going to wrap this one. We're going to take about a 5-minute break here so we can get reset for the second show. Links are in the in the description below, so you guys can find those on Facebook or YouTube. And we will be back in 5 minutes with a question and answer time. Thank you for being with us tonight.